To our big focus, which is the AI summit in France. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was welcomed with a hug by French President Emmanuel Macron at a welcome dinner ahead of co-chairing the AI summit in Paris. At the dinner, the Prime Minister also met US Vice President J.D. Vance, who's also in France to attend the AI summit. Prime Minister Modi will be co-chairing the summit with Macron, hold bilateral talks with him and address business leaders. For India, the AI summit presents an opportunity to influence global AI policies and collaborate on international standards. Prime Minister Modi's participation signifies India's commitment to ethical AI development and positions the country as a key player in shaping the future of AI. Additionally, the visit includes discussions on defense and technology sectors, further strengthening bilateral ties between India and France. So to know more about India's potential in this global AI race, we're joined by AI experts on the show. Dr. Swati Narang is with us, Prashant Puri, and also Ananay Batra. First to you, Swati, thanks to all of you for joining us on this important discussion. Swati, how do you analyze this key meet? India is evidently being seen as a key player in global AI discussions, which is why Prime Minister Modi is not just visiting Paris, but he's also co-chairing this particular summit. So how significant is this, and how can India sort of position itself as a global force in the field of AI as the Prime Minister is all set to co-chair the AI summit? Swati, can you hear me? I'll take this question to Prashant Puri. Prashant, if you heard my question, how do you analyze this key meet? You know, India is seen as a key player in global AI discussions. How can India position itself as a global force in the field of AI as Prime Minister is all set to co-chair the AI summit?
Yeah, absolutely, Radhika. So I think this is a momentous time for India, for Prime Minister Modi to co-chair with the French Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron. Already prior to the Paris summit, Prime Minister Modi had announced the investment in AI with purchasing close to 20,000 GPUs in India and build out AI's infrastructure. And I think the onset of the last couple of months with DeepSeek and China actually entering the AI race at a significantly lower cost basically tells other countries that AI doesn't involve hundreds of millions of dollars to start its own large language model. It can be done at significantly lower investments, more sustainable models in place. So all of this together essentially calls out India's foray into the AI race. Currently, if we kind of look at the race itself and all the large language models across different countries, US is at about 61 known large language models. China is at about 15. And then, there's a sharp drop across Germany and Japan at 4. So there's a huge difference between current leaders, which I think once India starts to play the game, we would play catch up and rule this space pretty quickly.
All right, Ananay, to you, we have a huge tech talent. We boast of, engineers and IT talent in India. So we have a highly skilled talent pool. So Ananay, so India does play a crucial role in the AI space. So what are India's key strengths in the space that can be leveraged to compete globally?
Right. So, Radhika, I think one of the main things that we have here, as you rightly said, is talent, right? The other thing, of course, would be data. I think a country with 1.4, 1.3, 1.4 billion people, right? The amount of data that we can produce at scale is absolutely staggering. And that is one of the most important things here, right? Because as you might have seen with some of the previous large language models, they do create a lot of synthetic data and a lot of data that is created by human created data, right? So that part's there. And the other thing that I think we should really talk about in the summit is AI ethics and AI safety, right? Because as we might have seen with a bunch of other large language model companies, OpenAI and most likely not Claude, but definitely OpenAI, they've been scraping data from different sources from New York Times, from a bunch of other sources, and see essentially their motto here is scrape first or steal first and then apologize later, right? Which I don't think should be the case. I think that's a very dangerous precedent. And the other thing about the problem is that it does, mess up the AI alignment issue, which is going to happen up later, right? If you want to make sure that AI is aligned to human values, we have to make sure that, the AI that is being trained on certain ethical data and data that is, uh, produced ethically, at least from the permission of whoever is creating the data, right? So yeah, I think those should be the main points that we should highlight in the summit. And yeah.
All right, point taken. Let's go to Swati now. Swati, if you can hear me, we've been talking about DeepSeek and OpenAI. United States has been at the forefront of AI innovation, and China has adopted an aggressive AI strategy backed by government support. So as far as India is concerned, Swati, how would you compare India's approach to AI with that of the US and China? What key differences really stand out in terms of policy, innovation, as well as scalability?
As we all know, how India is actually having the good brain, and how every you can say the new softwares which are being developed, our country is mainly responsible, and you can say our Indian people are only the ones who are in the committees. So if we see AI, it basically earlier was being given the supervised learning, and now a new DeepSeek has brought something new, which is being trained on reinforcement learning. Only 2000 GPUs were used. Now obviously we are expecting our software engineers to be to be bringing something new on the table, and doing this in lesser amount, and DeepSeek is being trained, we are expecting such training from for our coming AI, which actually government has announced recently. Government announced such a big amount for the AI which we have. We are expecting another 8 months there would be something new coming up. So yes, we are sooner or later will our country would be training our AI model, LLM model, which we are expecting to be coming up in 8 months, in a better way, in a better scenario. So because we have always proved ourselves to be the best one. How our Chandrayaan came in a lesser amount, in a better way. Similarly, we'll definitely do that for AI also. We're expecting that. Over to you.
Right. So optimism as far as India's potential here is concerned. Prashant, coming back to you, with AI transforming industries worldwide, how do you see AI, sort of impacting India's economy in the short and long term? Which sectors, such as agriculture, healthcare, manufacturing, hold the most promise for AI transformation in India?
I think it's pretty much, vertical or industry agnostic. You can pretty much cherry pick any industry, and AI is making a massive foray and making massive positive dents to that industry, whether it's healthcare. Prime Minister Macron actually talked about how France has invested a lot within predictive cancer treatments, and how they're spending billions of dollars in figuring out what currently an MRI does in an hour and a half, in a couple of minutes. So I see healthcare obviously providing amazing advancements with the help of AI. But apart from that, you've got education and edtech, the speed of learning, leveraging AI to again make huge differences in the future of education. I myself, we run a marketing agency. We're using AI and generative AI a lot. Our speed of actually working across multiple verticals has improved significantly. If you even look at Google and Meta in the last year and a half, the technology that they've produced for marketers has been mind-boggling. What a typical marketer would take an hour and a half to two now is done in under sub 10 minutes. Performance and data is again very huge in driving all our decisions with the help of AI. So I think across multiple segments, AI is huge. Just before we started this segment, I was looking at the ads that were coming on NDTV, and out of the 5 ads, 4 talked about AI across different segments. So that just talks about the power of AI across multiple segments and verticals.
Right. So AI can be adopted across multiple sectors, as far as Indian AI ecosystem is concerned, is what you're saying. Let me go back to Ananai. Ananai, India's AI startup ecosystem is growing rapidly. I mean, all of you are part of that ecosystem. So how do you think government and private sector can support innovation in AI, particularly in building perhaps a robust startup culture? Do you think India has the potential to become a global leader in research? Because when we were speaking to several of AI experts over the last few days, we are speaking about a great talent pool. We have engineers, we have skilled people, but research and development, funding in research and development is something that is lacking, is what I'm hearing.
Indeed. So I think that one of the major things that we could do here would be to focus more on math related subjects, because essentially that is what it is, right? We have to make, in order for us to make innovations on the model side of things, in order for us to make sure that our models are more efficient, right? We have to make sure that there is a lot of foundational stuff that is being worked on. And in order for us to do that, we have to make sure that, our young talent pool is trained on the base maths that is required to build these large language models, right? Which is a lot of matrix multiplication, which is essentially a lot of matrix multiplication at scale, right? So that's one. And another thing that comes to mind is us partnering with news channels like yours, right? So in order for us to, train our data on Indian regional languages, let's say a Marathi or Telugu or something else, right? We have to make sure that we get that data ethically and we get a lot of it, right? In order for us to make sure that our models are good, right? And a lot of this data that we're talking about is owned by a lot of news channels, right? A lot of regional news channels. So this is something that we could do if there was a way for startups or young, large language model companies just to get the data somehow to train their GPUs. That is one. The other part here is, I think increasing the GPU supply significantly would also help us quite a lot, because DeepSeek alone, I think, had 50,000 H100 GPUs, right? That is a lot more than what India has in a sum, right? In total. So I think just 5xing our GPU supply would be a great thing to do here. Another thing that we should absolutely do is make innovation on the GPU side of things as well. Develop our own architecture. We shouldn't be completely dependent on NVIDIA. So having our own chipsets, having our own architecture, that helps us create a lot of these large language models, at least train them, right? So for example, Mistral just recently launched this thing called LayChat, which was trained on their own Cerebra chips, right? Which is not NVIDIA based. I mean, they were built by TSMC, but they're not NVIDIA based chips, right? They're homegrown, they're built by the French, right? So I think if you were to do something like that, reduce the dependency on NVIDIA, I think that would make a huge difference in the long run as well. So backward integration for sure. And something that we have been good at and something that we should absolutely double down on is the application layer as well, right? So just as we backward integrate, we should forward integrate as well, because the application layer is where the value is delivered, right? So we want to make sure that India as a country, right, we have to launch a product that is used by the rest of the world, right? So TikTok, for example, was launched by China and it was used by the rest of the world, right? Eventually banned. The States has multiple products that do help them in capturing data, right? So Facebook, Instagram, a bunch of these other products that are used by the world, right? We don't have any of those products. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is that we need products that are used by the world, right? Not just India, by the world. So I think those few things should be taken care of and should be focused on for the next few years.
Right. So, make products that can be used by the world, not just by India. So that's another point that is being made. Let's go to Swati. Swati, what are some of the barriers that India faces in fully adopting AI across various sectors? Of course, we did speak about how it can be implemented, it can be adapted in various sectors, be it education, healthcare, infrastructure. But what are the barriers? What are the challenges do you think there is, as far as full adaptation of AI is concerned in various sectors from an Indian context?
Yeah, see, if I talk about our country is still lagging behind in providing internet connection to the remote areas. See, still now, if the metro cities are all equipped with all the definite equipments, and yes, this is one thing which I think is the reason where AI cannot be completely, you can say, adopted. Second reason, which I think related to this is if we give this whole adoption to all of like if the data which we are providing, because we are the most populous country, so the manpower thing is definitely a positive thing for us. So the machine would learn more from our you can say our data, because in other countries the population is less. So, and but the biggest barrier which our country companies are actually not are given the guidelines from the government not to disclose out the data which is actually useful for the machine learning at one point of time. Even though we have such a big population, still we can't train the machines. While I was doing the research during my PhD, at that point of time, I faced this difficulty. So I think this would be the difficulty which would be faced by the researchers for sure. So that the data doesn't is not that easily available, that readily available for the people out here. And third thing, which I think, yes, this language barrier would be the thing which we'll have to train our AI for the all the local languages, because there are 22 different languages recognized by Constitution of India. Along with that, there are accents of that particular language. Different places have different accents. If we talk about a symbol like a language which is spoken in a particular region is different from another region, even though it's the same language. At that time, we have to train our AI to understand all those accents. At that point of time, we will face a little bit difficulty. Yeah. If I
Right, so
talk about
language
budget,
issues, lack of internet connectivity, so several issues as a result of the sheer population. Prashant, my question is, US has a more decentralized approach to AI regulation, but China has been implementing AI policies under the control of a central government. So how should India navigate its AI ethics and regulatory landscape, especially in comparison with the models of US and China? Again, what challenges does India face in balancing innovation and ethical considerations?
So definitely, Radhika, there should be ethical considerations, but at the same time, when you're starting off on this race, there's like there's a church and state. There's a balance that needs to be maintained. Recently, Trump overthrew his predecessors' talk, where there were guardrails that Joe Biden had actually set in place during his time. And one of the executive orders that Trump signed in the last 20 days was that I don't want any guardrails in place. I want free development of AI. I don't want that to be a pain point for innovation. So at the beginning, when we're actually starting to innovate, when we need India to take sort of a global stage in the space of AI, I think we need lesser guardrails for innovation to flourish. And once that happens, is when we can start to add in some more guardrails around security and privacy. That's definitely required, but I would not trade that for making a foray within this space. There are, so when Meta started its own Llama large language model to gain adoption, it didn't have what we now call watermarks across its images, right? So what watermarks does is it basically tells you that this image was AI generated. When it started off creating images, Meta didn't have that. But now, as of the last couple of months, it started to have that watermark within the image. So those are some security policies that Meta has put within its large language model Llama, which came at a much later point after adoption. This is just one example, right? So I think security and having policies in place is critical. That's essentially what also a large part of the Paris AI Summit is about, is the governance, having a global governance across heads of state in place so that they can have one common ground but it's actually a difficult ground to get to, especially when everyone is sort of, it's like an arms race, right? Like who has more large language models and who can actually get more global data, as one of the panelists talked about. So how can you actually build that? And in building that kind of an ecosystem, we might need to let go of certain security and policies in the beginning.
All right. We have, let me put the state question, same question across to Ananay as well. As Prashant had been pointing out, policy, security are aspects to be considered. But, once again, what challenges does India face in balancing innovation with ethical consideration? Because US, China, their models are different. But what about India at large?
So I agree with Prashant here. I think certain guardrails should be loosened up. Now, essentially, when you look at, say, OpenAI, right, as I said before, they've had this policy: scrape first or steal first, then apologize later, right? So, I mean, if the playing field has been leveled by them and the rules are set in a way that you could get away with something like this, and there are not a lot of ethical considerations that are in place. I mean, even with DeepSeek or China, right? They have scraped a bunch of data. In fact, they've distilled from ChatGPT, which stole data, right? So if those are the rules, right, I don't think we should hold back. I think we should make sure that we get our data as soon as possible. If it does mean scraping certain website, if it does mean getting certain data
Right.
from certain websites, I think that should be doable.
Right,
There is
right.
no problem in doing that. Right.
Right, Ananay, thank you so much. In fact, we are running short of time, but Swati, Prashant and Ananay, thank you for joining us in this important discussion and giving your thoughts and insights into India's position in AI landscape. And as you all have been pointing out, India with its booming tech sector and pool of talent is expected to play a pivotal role in shaping global AI policy. This visit by Prime Minister Modi, of course, further cementing India's commitment to becoming a key player in the global AI landscape.